Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. The Montreal Canadiens play 2 games on the weekend, Saturday night at home versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. A shutout win for Jacob Fowler, his first NHL shutout. The Canadiens go to Pittsburgh on Sunday night, and they fall in the shootout. We'll discuss all of that, the weekend that was. We'll take a look at the hockey stat card on Saturday, the hockey stat card on Sunday. There's a lot to talk about as far as Lane Hutson and Juraj Slafkovsky are concerned. Jacob Fowler, once again, with the big shutout. Sam Montembeault was supposed to join his teammates last night in Pittsburgh. A change of plans there. Sam Montembeault was on the ice in Brassard earlier this morning. He wasn't the only one. Phillip Danault was there with him and some members of the staff as well. Speaking of Phillip Danault, was Friday night the Montreal Canadiens announced the trade, acquiring Phillip Danault in exchange for a second-round draft pick, going to the Los Angeles Kings. All of that, plus our guest, Eric Engels, had a chance to chat with Montreal Canadiens owner Geoff Molson. What's on Jeff's mind? What did he have to say? We'll talk about all of that coming up. It's the Sick Podcast, weeknights, starting at 10 p.m. right here in English. I'm Marinaro.
It's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K,
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro,
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
the sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together they work
worked a young team to the top. And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Monday, December 22nd. In all transparency, this podcast was taped hours ago. So not at 10 p.m. live, but a couple of hours ago. And of course, we're trying to fit in everyone's schedule because the holidays are here. And because the holidays are here, I think it's also going to be an abbreviated Sick Podcast tonight, which means if you're used to about an hour, you're going to get a little bit less, but it'll be more than 30 minutes. That I can tell you, because there's a lot of content. We're going to talk about the Phillip Danault trade. We're going to talk about Saturday's game. We'll talk about Sunday's game. We'll talk about Jacob Fowler's performance on Saturday night. Jacob Dobish's performance on Sunday night. We'll talk about the weekend that was for Lane Hutson, which was extraordinary. An awesome weekend as well for Juraj Slafkovsky. A very good game for the line of Kapanen, Demidov, and Slafkovsky yesterday. There were a couple of players that struggled. We'll talk to you about a couple of injuries. Jake Evan was one. Joe Veleno was not on the bench for the overtime either yesterday, as he got his bell rung pretty good. Head down, got a hit, and looked like he was a little dizzy for a second there. Anyway, we'll discuss all of that. We'll discuss Samuel Montembeault. The original plan was for him to join his teammates in Pittsburgh. And then, on Sunday, the Canadiens let Montembeault, no, don't come down because, look, you're not going to play in Pittsburgh anyway. And I think it's already been predetermined that, once they saw Jacob Fowler's performance on Saturday night, they said, okay, you know what? We're going to give this kid the start on Tuesday night in Boston in front of some people that know him well, because, of course, he was there for a couple of years when he played for Boston College. Also, on the agenda tonight, our guest had a chance to talk with Montreal Canadiens owner Geoff Molson. He is Eric Engels of Sportsnet, and he's coming up in just a couple of minutes.
Eric Engels, presented by Allard et Emont, experts in heating, air conditioning, and ventilation since 1977.
Eric is brought to you by Allard and Emont for nearly 50 years. Allard and Emont have set the standard for HVAC service in Montreal. Their focus is simple, unmatched quality, and dependable comfort for your home. Visit allardemont.com to learn more. Allard and Emont, experts in heating, air conditioning, and ventilation since 1977. What's going on with you?
A lot. How about you?
A lot. Are you texting me, or who are you texting exactly?
I'm not texting you.
You're texting Geoff Molson and say, hey, Jeff, watch. We're going to talk about you in just a minute here.
No, I think he's heard enough from me. It was interesting sitting down with the owner of the Canadiens, obviously at the Board of Governor meetings, something that we had arranged. Just because I thought, a couple things have been very interesting in terms of this rebuild, right? They went full tilt into it, coming not only out of the Stanley Cup final, but out of the pandemic, where finances were arrested and the business was arrested, not just the hockey business, but the entertainment business. And it was a pretty bold decision. And I wanted to talk to him about it. I also wanted to talk to him about how he's preparing to meet the moment for which the Canadiens emerge from this and become the contender they're aiming to be. So
I read the article, and for those who didn't see it or those who didn't have a chance to read it, we'll just give you a picture of Sportsnet's Eric Engels sat down with Canadiens owner Geoff Molson, talk about how the Canadiens have bounced back as an organization and where they go from here. Listen, obviously, we don't want to give away the entire article because we want it to generate traffic. We want people to go to it. We want people to read it. But, of course, he talked about the fact that, at one point he thought that they could have easily got eliminated in that first round series, that they were down by a score of down by 3-1 to the Toronto Maple Leafs. He thought they could have easily got eliminated, which they didn't. And seeing as Carey Price and Shea Weber went down with some pretty long-term injuries as well, he decided to go with a different approach and didn't want to continue going with the approach of, let's just try and get in. And once you do, anything can happen. I think he wanted to go with something a lot more sustainable, a lot more viable, and he went with the rebuild. What I'd like to know is, and it sounds like the decision came from him and only him. After all, he did relieve his general manager of his duties back in November of 4 years ago. But I'm wondering if there were other people that whispered in his ear as well. Hey, Kent, hey, Geoff, you should probably take a look at what's going on with this team or that team. Their rebuilding is probably a good idea. Were you able to go that deep?
I think we went deep enough to discover that he had a year's worth of contemplation over which direction to take the Canadiens in. And the answers became clear to him as things evolved, right? You talked about the Toronto series and potentially getting knocked out there. They were able to ride some good luck and fortune and some things that happened. Toronto kind of shooting themselves in the foot. You think of Marner, like giving them that 5-on-3 in game 6 and the saves that Carey Price made before Barry Kotkaniemi scored in game 7 going down the way it did. I think the Canadiens were full value getting to the Stanley Cup final that year. But as Molson said in the piece, we weren't built for the future.
The Galchenyuk giveaway in game 5 in overtime?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you could point to. I think when you look at the Winnipeg series, the Canadiens completely outplayed them through a 4-game sweep. I think if you look at the Vegas series where nobody gave them a chance to win that series, they outplayed Vegas for most of those 6 games. And they ran up against a Lightning team that was playing the only team in the league that was playing a better team game than they were at the time. So they were full value for that run. But look, like they went into the playoffs with almost everybody hurt. I don't know if you remember, like they barely made the playoffs because everybody was hurt, including Danault, who just came over here, had a concussion, I believe. You had Gallagher, who was hurt. Weber was hurt. Price was hurt. Weber couldn't even hold a stick with the torn ligaments in his thumb, not to mention everything we found out later about what he was having to do to get ready for games.
What his ankle, yeah.
If they thought they could ride their way through that at the beginning of the next season, the awful start that they got off to just confirmed everything for Molson. I thought, look, it was a bold decision because the Canadiens had never gone down that path before. It was a bold decision from a financial perspective, to which Molson responded, finance was never even part of the equation for him, right? Like coming out of the pandemic, coming out of run to the finals with no fans in the building outside of 3,500 later in the rounds, it took balls. And I think if you look at all the things that have happened since, and the real point of the article is like, you don't have a chance of winning or rebuilding and finding your way to a winning path without good ownership. You just don't. Like you look at all the investments and decisions that have been made since in development and analytics, in team services, in all the areas where the Canadiens lagged. When they rebuilt, it wasn't
sports science.
Yeah, so take your pick. They were lagging in a number of key areas, and the opportunity to rebuild wasn't just on the ice. It was a real look in the mirror. I thought that the one quote from Molson in the piece where he said the lesson learned was sometimes you have to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself if you're doing things the right way. He asked himself some hard questions and made a lot of changes coming out of that, self-inflection. So I just think self-reflection, it's fascinating. The article starts with discussion about signing bonuses and offsetting cap numbers. We saw it happen with Hutson and Matheson and Dobson and Slafkovsky before them. Not every owner in the NHL is willing to do this stuff. Not every owner is willing to sign off on an RCA, which is, I don't want to get too granular and bore fans about this, but there are things that the Canadiens are doing to offset the tax reality of playing in Quebec that would put them on equal playing field with a no tax state like Florida. They're paying.
Case in point, Lane Hutson's $8.85 million could actually equate to about $10.5 million.
It'll end up being a lot more money in his pocket if he's got good financial advice and if they went down that road. I don't have confirmation that they did, but I know that the owner of the Canadiens is willing to do those types of things. And there's owners around the league that aren't necessarily like, we talked about Anaheim in the article, just based on a financial advisor that I touched base with who deals with certain players, and said like they've been dead set against doing stuff like signing bonuses. California is a high state tax area, the highest state tax in the States at any market in the NHL. Yeah. Anaheim has built an incredible team, a team that is on their way to becoming a cup contender. How long will the window be open for them if they can't get the salary cap figures to be in line with what they're building? Yeah, because their owner is unwilling to give signing bonuses and kind of offset some of the things you deal with in those taxes. It's it's going to be interesting, right? Like they've got two really important players right now coming out of entry level, right at the same time with, you know, other players around the league like Connor Bedard coming up for a contract. Like, how do you convince those players to take a little less on the cap if you're unwilling to do certain things like Geoff Molson has done here? So
it's a good topic. I actually had a chance to discuss RCAs and tax benefits with Shlomi Levy just a couple of weeks ago, about a week ago, actually. Yeah.
It's a really, look, again, I don't think it's too exciting for us to get into the minutia and details of exactly what that constitutes, but people could look it up. It's very easily, it essentially boils down to putting some of your salary away in holding so that with the government, again, I don't want to get too granular, but at the end of the day, you retire somewhere outside of Canada once you've played there. Say you're an American player or a Canadian player who gets traded to the States and ends up retiring there, or a European player who goes back to Europe afterwards. The benefits are significant. The money that you've put away, and eventually when you take it out, will be taxed at the rate where you're living.
I know that in your conversation with Geoff Molson, you didn't talk about this, but in a previous interview with Jeff Gordon, which was shortly after Jeff Gordon joined the Montreal Canadiens, you had written another fabulous piece, Eric, about some of the discoveries that Jeff Gordon found and some of the things that he actually changed. But down the stretch of the previous general manager's tenure, they weren't exactly eating the same, and they didn't exactly have the same setup on some of the same privileges that they do now. I remember in one of your previous pieces, at one point, were they ordering Uber Eats or something like that? They weren't actually.
Listen, that was influenced obviously by the realities of the pandemic. Rules in Quebec were a lot harsher than they were, you know, in certain other places, and so there was different things going on. But you know, the pandemic allowed Geoff Molson and everybody around him to kind of look themselves in the mirror and say, what can we change here? How can we make ourselves better? How do we live up to the reputation that we've honed as the New York Yankees of hockey? And how do we bring ourselves forward? And so major investments were made in, you know, on the ice. What's the biggest area they needed to improve? Player development, right? We've talked a lot, you and I, about how they went from being way behind the curve to being pioneers. Team services, Alex Case, the guy that they brought in from New York, who Gordon knew extremely well, is, you know, if not the best guy in the league in that specific role, he's right up there by reputation if you speak to other people around the league, or if you speak to the players that deal with him on a regular basis like I have. You know, he's facilitated a lot of things for them that makes it's that extra personal touch. They brought in a chef into Brossard so that they have meals that are being prepared for them on a daily basis. Also at the Bell Center, they've brought in a nutritionist who they've put on staff. There's just little things, little touches that if you want to be a step above or a class above, or the class that you should expect to fall into as the Montreal Canadiens, those investments were made throughout this rebuild. And Jeff Gordon specifically, and when I went back and did that when he was hired, it was to point out that he wasn't just being brought in to rebuild the product on the ice. There's a lot that goes into being a successful organization. And if you want to turn yourself from a team that's bottoming out to a team that's going to be winning and opening up a window where you win or have a chance, give yourself a chance to win over time, you've got to be doing all these things and more, and continuously looking to optimize. And I don't think they've been doing those things in Buffalo to the same degree. You know, ownership is extremely important. They always say it starts at the top, right? And I think that was a little bit of what I was trying to expose in the conversation with Geoff Molson and France Margaret Belanger, who gave me some time. And you just look, he's fallen under criticism, and justifiably so, at different points of his tenure as owner of the Canadiens. He certainly received some from me. But if you go through what's happened since they made the decision to embark on this rebuild, it's hard to find fault in much of the things that they've done. It's an impressive turnaround from an organizational standpoint, not just on the ice. Yeah. And a lot has been done to push them in the right direction, which he's very excited about.
You piqued my curiosity. What had you criticized them about in the past?
Well, the Logan Mailloux decision, some of the
Okay.
decisions made around the pandemic.
Yeah.
I can't enumerate them off the top of my
I
head.
hear you.
There were definitely some reasons for him to not particularly enjoy some of the things I would have written about him in the past. That's the name of the game. You know, you call a dog, a cat in this game. And sometimes, you know, you're talking about one person in one light and shedding another light on them as they progress and evolve in their capacities. Like Geoff Molson, I thought his strongest leadership that he showed was committing to bringing in two people to do the job that Marc Bergevin was doing before, the stuff that he learned from, you know, being involved, but a little more hands-off in the trust that he extended Bergevin and the way the organization ended up becoming quite siloed. I thought Marc Bergevin was a brilliant hockey mind. Okay. I'm very consistent in my record on that. Do I think Marc Bergevin was meant to be the type of executive that I see in Jeff Gorton? No, but you combine Jeff Gorton's hockey experience with his corporate experience and Kent Hughes's agent experience with his hockey experience and put those two together, you have a much more all-encompassing kind of thing. And when Molson hired Gorton, let's face it, I had the same reaction as everybody else, which is I think he's circumventing this whole French thing and they'll bring somebody in and Gorton will pull the strings from above. And I remember Geoff Molson saying, you guys may not understand this right now, but you will. You will in time understand why I believe this is a two-person job and why we're doing it this way. And he was right. We came to understand when Kent Hughes was hired and the way it's operated since between those two people. We were wrong.
It definitely is a two-person job. They definitely have complemented each other, strengths with the other's weakness. There are many in the National Hockey League who believes that Gorton is in charge ultimately, but they both well, I mean, you've not heard that before? Or?
Well, he is the president of hockey operations.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
One of them is the general manager. At the end of the day,
one of them reports to the other, but they are working together. Yes,
they work largely in tandem, and yes, you know, the buck probably does stop with Jeff Gorton in terms of the hierarchy of the organization. I'm going to say this: both guys would not be anywhere near as effective as we've seen them be, if not for Molson giving them all the tools to be able to do their jobs the way they want to do them. These things that they're doing, throwing front-loaded signing bonus, RCAs, stuff like that into contracts for their players to lower the cap damage, look at the healthy picture from a salary cap perspective that will enable them to build a winner.
You kind of have to do it in Montreal too. It hasn't traditionally been the exact kind of market where you just sign players and they all want to come here either.
You do, but at the same time, like, it's his money. He could do whatever he wants. You can say the same thing in California and in Anaheim. And if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. Look, you know, Gorton and Hughes signed 5-year extensions. I tell you that I don't have the exact figures for what they signed for, but they're less than some of the other people make around the league. And it's because I think they have the tools available to them to do exactly what they need to do to build the team they want to have. And that's, again, that comes down to good ownership. I don't think you have it across the league. Okay, there's a lot of good owners, but there's some others that aren't.
I think it's the most. After buying the Montreal Canadiens for about $575 million with the entertainment in the building, I think the next best decision that Geoff Molson made was actually deciding to go the way of a rebuild and giving the keys to Jeff Gorton, who then hired Kent Hughes. Together, they both hired Marty St. Louis, Adam Nicholas, Nick Bobrov, and company. I think it was a pretty brilliant move. So I agree with you on that. Do you, in ending, before we actually move on to another subject, was it always Gorton for him from the beginning?
You know, we didn't get into that, but I think, you know, it's been well reported and never denied that Gary Bettman certainly suggested he was somebody that Geoff Molson should look at. Yeah. Geoff Molson took that under advisement, met with Gorton, and felt very comfortable with that. I think when we talk about the subject, Tony, of not only the on-ice product needing to be rebuilt, but the entire operation off the ice really needing to be modernized and changed, it was a major factor of where Gordon was coming from, right? He had dealt in big organizations in Boston and New York, worked his way up from a PR intern in Boston to GM, to becoming the man in New York who was overseeing something particularly trending in the right direction, pushing them in the right direction before he left. Also, the experience, I think, which was fundamental, was how they approached rebuilding the Rangers, how they were transparent with the fans about it. You know, when I talked to Molson and asked him, did you have trepidation from a financial standpoint? He said, no, but I had certainly concerns about how the fans might react and us going down this road for the very first time in the organization's history. They were fortunate they didn't have to strip themselves completely bare. You know, Nick Suzuki was here, Caden Gooley was here, Arbor Jacki was here, Cole Caulfield was here. But they had a lot of work to do to turn around the on-ice product, but specifically the off-ice product. It made Jeff Gorton such an important piece of what they could build in the future and how to operate a proper rebuild without cutting corners. And I'm not sure what other candidate would have been in the mix that would have been more appealing after those meetings took place. The good thing is that Gordon had the foresight and in having dealt with Kent Hughes for as long as he did, to have understood that he could be a really strong asset in this whole process. And sure enough, I think the work they've done together has really complemented each other. There'll come a time maybe where they do something wrong, or they make some mistakes that we'll have to talk about one way or the other. I often get a bunch of flack for saying I'm sitting here, you know, pumping their tires for everything they do, but like, when have they screwed up? It hasn't really come very frequently. There's a couple little moves in between here where you can look at it in hindsight and say, oh, well, maybe they should have done this. But when you look at the overall picture, they've put the Canadiens on a path of exactly where they want to bring them.
All right. Phil Danault wanted to bring the Montreal Canadiens to the Stanley Cup final. He was on the ice back in 2021 for Arturi Lekkonen's game-winning goal in overtime to eliminate the Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games. And he had some great moments with the Montreal Canadiens, seasons of high 40s in the points, low 50s in the points. Was on a line with Brendan Gallagher and Thomas Tatar that in terms of Corsi, in terms of 200-foot play, was very, very effective. One of the best lines in hockey, as a matter of fact. And then the Montreal Canadiens made him an offer of what we're hearing in the ballpark of about 5 years at $5 million per season. And he ended up leaving to sign a 6-year deal at $5.5 million per season with the Los Angeles Kings. Had 4 great seasons in Los Angeles. This has been a very, very difficult one with 0 goals, 5 points thus far for the Los Angeles Kings, a healthy scratch on a couple of occasions, talks of him wanting out. And we had a feeling that he was going to get traded right before the roster freeze in the National Hockey League, right before the December 20th. And actually about 1 hour before the freeze, he was actually traded to the Montreal Canadiens for a second-round pick, just a second-round pick. I mentioned that to somebody today, just a second-round pick. And it was like, well, it's not just a second-round pick. He's got 0 goals and 5 points this season. So it's a lot, all things considering. And I said, well, I'm willing to pay a second round. I was not willing to pay Jake Evans in return for Phil Danault. I was not willing to pay Owen Beck in return for Phil Danault. But seeing as Phil Danault is an experienced player that you can add to a very young team, the youngest in the National Hockey League, he's a 200-foot player. He's a centerman. He wins his faceoffs, or is very, very good in the faceoff circle. He can play on the penalty kill. He adds depth. He adds leadership. He knows the market. He could take Nick Suzuki away from some matchups. There's so many reasons why I can go on and tell you that I think it's a move that was worth doing for the Canadiens. Your thoughts? When did you start to think that this was a real strong possibility? And what did you think of the price they paid?
I didn't think that it was a strong possibility at all, because I didn't think that the Los Angeles Kings could move Phil Danault without replacing him. And when people talk about Jake Evans and throwing his name out there, like, that was never on the table. Like, the Canadiens were never going to put a roster player as important to them as Jake Evans has proven to be. And unfortunately, he's going to miss some time here on the table for Phillip Danault. To be able to trade from a position of excess, as Kent Hughes said, where they've got their own second round pick and they're giving up Columbus's, which is trending certainly in a better to be a better pick than their own pick. So they did give something up to get something of value to them. And we talked a lot about their needs for, a second line center. But what was clear through this season is that their main needs were not putting the puck in the net. It was keeping it out of their own. You could look at it two ways in terms of the price they paid. I think it's a very expensive one for a player who has 5 points this season. The other way of looking at it would be that if a Phil Danault, who was playing anywhere near the offensive capacity that he's been at over the last 4 years of putting up between 43 and 53 points, it would have cost a lot more than just a second round pick. So, they bought low. Even if they paid a price, they bought from a position of surplus, and they address a need. Several needs, actually. They have the youngest roster in the NHL before he comes here. They had a team that was 25th on the penalty kill before he got here. They had a team that had no issue, was I think ranked 8th in the league in goals per game, but ranked 19th or 20th, or maybe even deeper than that in goals against per game. He helps in all those departments. And the one department where I think he helps more than somebody else who plays a similar role could have is the fact that he's left-handed. You look at earlier attempts this season to recreate what you had with Dvorak, Gallagher, and Anderson as a line last year with Evans. And it's not because Evans doesn't do similar things. It's because you have three righties who are trying to build a momentum cycle line. And I asked Marty St. Louis about this, and he said, when you're able to pop a one-timer into the slot, you draw coverage with you. You enable that type of cycle with that as many plays that come behind the goal line. So I just think if you want to recreate that type of line that you had before with Anderson, Gallagher, and Danault, that's something that you could do down the line. The other side of it is like Kirby Dach is coming back relatively soon. You've got Alex Newhook will be back in February. I'm not sure about Blaine's status. We'll see what it ends up being, but the options become more plentiful. And I just think it was easier for them to fill this specific need for the here and now than the long-term need of a guy who can really drive a second line from the middle. So we'll see where that goes.
Nothing to lose, I say. I think the year and a half is going to go fast in the contract, and I think it also gives time for the younger players to actually stay in Laval instead of being rushed up. I have to tell you, I do like the hockey that Owen Beck has been playing as of late, and that's one of the reasons why I don't want to give up on Owen Beck. And you know what? You always need players who are going to be on entry-level contracts.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how this world works, right? Like Owen Beck would have been doing whatever he was doing at 11 o'clock at night on Friday. And when that newser came out that Phillip Danault was being acquired, he would have thought to himself, wow, like tomorrow could be my last game before going back to Laval. And 4 minutes into it, Jake Evans goes down. And there's been some momentum in Owen Beck's game, right? We've seen it. There's some momentum over the last few games where he capitalized on it and finally scored his first NHL goal for the third time, basically. I like where his game is going. He's proving that he has NHL capability, and a little bit of a runway helps him do that. So it's coming at a good time because, like I said, Evans, I don't think it's worst case scenario with Evans. And obviously we're all waiting for an update from the Canadiens, but he's going to miss some time. He's been put on IR already.
Yeah.
I think he could be more week to week than day to day, but I think the worst case scenario was avoided here. Still, it's going to offer opportunity for Beck, and Kirby Dach will be back pretty soon too.
All right. Okay. Joe Veleno got his bell rung. He was able to get up, but you saw it. He was down for a while, then got up, wasn't on the bench in overtime. So, it's... I
think he was pulled by the spotters.
Yeah, and he probably was. Because you can tell that... listen, there was contact with the head, and you know what? He was probably a little bit dizzy. But once again, just goes to show you the way things happen sometimes. With Jake Evans hurt and Joe Veleno getting his bell rung, the Canadiens very much need Phil Danault, who, by the way, Patrick Guillet of Donnie Coulisses, who hangs out at the Complex Sports FCN in Brossard a lot, was there earlier today, and I think he's got some video on Phil Danault. Look at that. I showed that to Eric Belanger earlier today, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, he can move. He can move pretty good.
I'm not worried about Phillip Danault. I don't think he might not be the guy who's still able to put up 55 points in the league, but he's certainly not the guy, in my view, that put up 5 through 30. You know, whatever circumstances he dealt with in LA and however he was being handled by the head coach there, it wasn't a fit in the end. And he needed a fresh start. And, I think LA inevitably came to the realization that A, nobody was going to give them a Phil Danault replacement, and B, that knowing how welcoming Phil would be for a fresh start, the point of keeping him around became less and less. It is a fresh start in a place he's familiar with, in a room that he's been in for many years, with players that he knows well. Team on the rise. It's a great opportunity. We've seen some players recently come to Montreal with great opportunity in front of them and really take advantage of it. He has to at $5.5 million through the end of next season on the cap. It's not an exorbitant number for a third line center, especially with where the cap is going, but he needs to live up to it. And the Canadiens did give up an asset to get him. And I just think it speaks to where they are now, Tony.
Yeah.
Like, you think of them taking at the beginning of last year a pick to take on Patrick Laine, and they never would have traded for him without getting that pick. They were still somewhat in the asset accumulation phase of their rebuild. They emerged from that. They made a move for Alex Carrier, the first of the Phil Danault kind, to stabilize what they had as a young defense core. I want to come back on Christian Dvorak. Had many people ask me about Christian Dvorak, including my own brothers. Kent Hughes talked about how he spoke to Dvorak before he decided to leave for free agency. I think there were some other options on the table for Kent Hughes in free agency that would have had him put up a stop sign or a pause sign to Christian Dvorak. And Christian Dvorak wasn't just going to sit around and wait for all the chairs to get filled, and ultimately decided to sign in Philadelphia for 1 year and bet on himself on a $5.4 million deal. I thought he was going to get a long-term contract from a team like Chicago who could really use some good veterans, but and he's from there. But in hindsight, would Kent Hughes have been better off signing Christian Dvorak? I mean, I think that was the opportunity cost, was that he was looking at some other possibilities, right? There was all kinds of talk about Gyro at the time. There was some other conversations that Kent Hughes was obviously involved in, where he thought he might be able to fill a bigger hole in his lineup than the one he thought Christian Dvorak might leave if he went to another team. So I just think, hindsight being what it is, to be able to get a Phil Danault in December at this point for the price they paid and where they're going, it helps make up for that loss for sure. And they wanted to create the space for the youngsters, test their youngsters and see where they were at. They realized still that there was a need specific to the defensive side of the game, up the middle of the ice and on the left shooting variety type of player, that boom, they checked a lot of boxes with that move. We'll see how it pays off for them.
All right. Okay. A lot of people are wondering who Phil Danault is going to play with. So before we talk about the line of Kapanen, Demidov, and Slafkovsky, who do you think is going to play with? And I know it all depends on who's injured and who's not injured. But look, we know that Jake Evans is out.
Yeah.
So who do you
think? I put him with Anderson and Gallagher tomorrow in Boston. That would be an easy way to integrate him into the lineup, but also a way to create the exact dynamic that you had with Dvorak last year. And Anderson's playing well. It's been a few games in a row he's playing well. Gallagher could use a pick-me-up. And I think the familiarity with Danault gives him a spark that he needs right now.
I don't have a problem with that at all, other than the fact that if you take a look at Gallagher's time on ice over the last 4 or 5 games, it's hovering around the 10-minute mark, and you would think that Danault's going to get more than that, but Danault will probably get more than that because he's going to play the penalty kill. Yeah. So, I don't have a problem with that, nor do I have a problem with him playing with Anderson and Texier. I don't have a problem with that either.
Yeah, but I think you create – I think it's about creating roles and lines, right? You have a defensively responsible line with Anderson, Danault, and Gallagher, but a line also that can create that momentum and cycle for you and handle some of the matchups. and you can create a bit more of an offensive looking line with Danault, Texier, and Beck, and 3 guys that you can also trust. So it's about role more than anything. It's about fit and chemistry. I just think it would be an easy decision for Marty to go that way, but if he goes the way you just mentioned, that won't surprise me either. He's got options. It's the options that he hoped to have at the beginning of the season, and now they've come through for him with Danault coming in at a time where Evans unfortunately goes down. So it's you gotta work with what you got, but I think there's great opportunity there.
All right. When the Canadiens sent Samuel Montembeault down for a conditioning stint to Laval Rocket, and they said, hey, you know what? He'll be with the Rocket. I have a couple practices with them. He'll play in Cleveland on Thursday. He'll play in Cleveland on Saturday. And then he's going to join us on Sunday night in Pittsburgh. I was wondering, why is he going to join you on Sunday night in Pittsburgh? He's not going to play the game, obviously, because he's going to play he's not going to play 3 games in 4 nights, having played Thursday and Saturday. Why didn't you just give him an extra couple of days in Montreal to practice with the Rocket, to practice with their goalie coach? And that's ultimately what they decided to do. The big question, Eric, is how much of it had to do with Jacob Fowler's performance on Saturday night before they made up their mind? And
I don't think much at all. I don't remember if it was on with you or with Martin Lemay, but I turned to you and said, I think it was you who asked me what I would do with the goaltending. I said I wouldn't play Samuel Montembeault before after Christmas.
It was me who asked you. That's exactly what you said. Continue.
Yeah, I said I would give him time with Eric Raymond, and I would send him to the AHL for a conditioning stint. That's what I said. And I think it was a day later that's exactly what they did with him. I just think he needed a full reset, break from the Canadiens, work on yourself, your own mental game, find your confidence within games, which wasn't going to happen under the schedule the Canadiens were on and the pressure they have to win. And I hope that he's been able to build step by step, save by save, so that the next time he sees game action, he can be the guy that, or at least a lot closer to the guy that we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay. Grab your crystal ball, because I'm going to ask you to look into it in just a second, okay? But if I can, not before, I have to give a mention to some of our sponsors here. Sick Podcast brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, a leading asset light 3PL. It's driven to be different from cross-border freight between Canada, USA, and Mexico to coast shipping in both Canada and the United States. Energy moves it all, fast, reliable, powered by tech that delivers smarter logistics. And your real partner in transportation, contact the team at sick@shipenergy.com. See how Energy Transportation Group is changing the freight game. Are you hungry for a deal? A shout out to Playground. Eat well at Playground without breaking the bank. Mondays, get a free rotisserie chicken meal. Tuesday, get a free burger with your choice of side. How? First, accumulate 50 reward points on any machine any day of the week. Next, visit guest services, player rewards, or any cashier to have your free rotisserie chicken voucher and your free burger voucher printed. Now you're ready to eat for free. Just bring the appropriate voucher to the rail on the following Monday and Tuesday between 11:30 a.m. and 11:30 p.m. It's delicious. It's outrageous. Visit playground.ca for details. Canadiens have a big game tomorrow night in Boston. For big games, you want the best beers on your team, whether it's Tibi IPA with its bold flavor, Tibi Lager with its exceptional smoothness, or Tibi Ultra Lager, which is ultra light and ultra refreshing. They always have a place on your team. Tibi, brewed for special occasions. Drink responsibly, please. Winter is here. A shout out to the Slush Buster. It's the new innovative snow brush designed to tackle winter's mess with ease. You see it on the screen right now. You see the video from heavy slush to stubborn ice. Slush Buster clears it all quickly, keeping your car clean, your hands dry, smarter, stronger, and built for Canadian winters. Use code Tony15 for 15% off on your order. Only available for the first 500 purchases. Eric Engels. I want to get back to Montembeault for a second, and I want to talk about Fowler. Fowler was fantastic on Saturday night. He picked up the shutout, first shutout of his career. I think when they played him on Saturday, they were hoping that he was going to do well, obviously, and saying probably if he does well, you know what, maybe we'll play him on Tuesday night in Boston, where, he had a couple of good games in that building, playing for Boston College and playing at the various tournaments. But when you look into your crystal ball, because you were right on the money with Montembeault and what you would do with him, what do you think is going to happen by the end of the year, early on in the new year, with the Canadiens goalies? How long will they keep 3 goalies here? Do you think they're going to wait it out to see what happens, or do you think there's already a predetermination on that front and they already know what's going to happen the next couple of weeks?
I think Fowler will be returned to Laval, but he could be back up here really quick. if things don't stabilize between Montembeault and Dobish. Dobish has certainly delivered some wins for the team and some points. Nothing against him. And what was very clear is that he shouldn't be left alone in a starting position without any parachute. I don't know if they have plans to explore the goaltending market beyond what they already have. If they found something that they felt would be a significant upgrade or something that solves that problem for them, maybe they'd have explored it or done it by now. I don't know if one will become available, but I know that Fowler is not going to be put in a position here in Montreal where he's sitting on the sidelines watching the other two guys play. That said, he can. I'm fighting off sneezing here because I have a small cold. But
sneeze if you have to. I just hope you have some Kleenex handy.
Yeah. No, he can bounce up and down without having to go through waivers, which makes it a kind of an easy problem to solve. Keep him playing, keep him warm. You have to find out what your process has yielded with Montembeault, right? And he did perform reasonably well without much of a team in front of him in Laval. Like, it's a different, people should keep in mind, it's very easy to just look at the amount of saves, the amount of goals allowed. You go down to the American Hockey League, yes, the pace of the game is completely different from the NHL. So is the structure. It's a lot looser. There's a lot of more chaos that can happen, even with the way the Canadiens have played defensively in front of Montembeault at times. But specifically in front of an AHL team, which was deprived of many of their players and their best players being in Montreal and the other ones being suspended, you don't read too deeply into the results. What you read into is the process. And I don't know about you, Tony. I didn't watch the 2 games that he played. I didn't watch the practices that he had. I saw highlights here and there. I saw some saves he made. I saw some goals that he allowed. That's not going to be able to free up my mind in terms of what I've seen. As far as they're concerned, they need to test it out for themselves. They know where they're at with the player. He's going to get another chance to play for the Canadiens. Let's see what he looks like when he gets that opportunity. They don't have so much margin for error with him, though, right? Yeah. The standings are tight. They're fighting their asses off to get every point that they possibly can. They've done, I told you, if they got through December at 500, I thought it would be a fantastic job by them. They're going to get through at least this portion of their schedule before the last 2 games of December above 500, no matter what happens in Boston. So I think that's a huge success for now. I know you wanted to talk about Hutson and Slafkovsky as the clock runs down here. So yeah. I mean, that's all I'll say about the goaltending.
Yeah, so let's do that. Why don't we take a look at the stat card on Saturday and the stat card on Sunday? All right, there you have it. The stat card on this was on Saturday. Saturday was a difficult night from the stat card perspective, but Juraj Slafkovsky, scored a big goal. You take a look at the stat card on Sunday now, and the stat card on Sunday shows Juraj Slafkovsky and Ivan Demidov, who were the 2 that suffered the most in the stat card category on Saturday night, were the 2 that actually put up the highest score on Sunday night. Last night, that kid line was very going. We saw Slafkovsky, the scorer, on Saturday. We saw Slafkovsky, the playmaker, on Sunday. Eric, Slafkovsky has everyone a little bit confused because I think they like the first line. A lot of people like the first line better with Slafkovsky. But a lot of people are loving Slafkovsky playing on that line with Kapanen and Demidov. What do you see? What do you see as far as the lines are concerned? And what adjustment do you think Slafkovsky's made?
Well, first of all, I think we should focus on the same thing Slafkovsky should focus on, which is the process, because the results suggest he's on pace for 53 or 54 points, which isn't such a market improvement. But if anybody's watching him play and watching his process, we're witnessing a much more improved player. And his point totals will obviously be affected by not playing full-time with Suzuki and Caulfield anymore.
Yeah.
He's with 2 rookies who are having excellent seasons, but they're not Suzuki and Caulfield just yet. Oliver Kapanen has been, how good has he been on both sides of the puck? I mean, he's getting the least amount of attention of all the guys we're talking about here, but he's a factor on that line. Demidov, has come as advertised. I just think the progress that Slafkovsky has shown and the reality that there is still ceiling above him for him to access, a lot of it for that matter, it bodes well for the future. And it's a great development job that they've done with him. Adam Nicholas, you and I have talked about. It's a great development job by Slafkovsky on himself too. Like he has taken the opportunity instead of looking at it like I'm being demoted off the first line, and said, I'm going to run this line with these two kids. And he wants to be a dominant player. Those are his words. I think he is, for large portions of games that he's on the ice for, dominating out there, physically imposing himself.
I haven't done all the homework, so I would imagine, though, that most teams, their top two forwards are leading the way in terms of 5v5 points for their respective teams. For the Canadiens, it's not the case. 5v5, the most points doesn't go to Suzuki or Caulfield. It goes to Kapanen and Demidov. How do you see that?
Matchups.
That's help. For sure. I mean,
but Suzuki's getting the bulk of his matchup against and Caulfield too, the best players in the world every single night. Slafkovsky and Demidov and Kapanen are being sheltered from those matchups, and often being able, with their skill, to take advantage of the ones they're in, even if they're up against experienced player. Don't want to players. I don't want to take anything away from them. Don't want to let Suzuki and Caulfield off the hook for what their jobs are from a 5-on-5 production standpoint either. This schedule is the ultimate equalizer in both those categories, though. Like it's brutal for everybody in the league. This December was insane. What was it? 15 games and 27 nights or something like that.
Pretty crazy.
It's been nuts.
Canadiens in Boston
and the major injuries too, Tony. Like, it's not an excuse; it's just a reality.
Yeah,
there
for
have
sure.
been major injuries for the Canadiens in terms of the type of personnel that's been out, which has only been added to now. So
an entire line and one defense pairing right now. Canadiens in Boston tomorrow night. If you want to get on the action, go all the way with Betway. Get a deposit matchup bonus up to $300 on your first deposit. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. By the way, speaking of tomorrow, I don't know if we have the graphic regarding. No, that's one of them. But we'll get you the other one. There you have it. It's a marathon.
Look great. Look at that smile.
Thank you very much. It's a marathon day fete for the Montreal Canadiens and for us, because we're going to go on for about 14 hours. 14 hours we're going to go on. I'm not going on for the entire 14 hours, by the way. So I'll actually get you a graphic which will show that'll show you who's going on exactly. But we're having kind of like a marathon telethon. So we're going to go for 14 hours, and we're going to try and raise money for a real good cause. And of course, I'm talking about Cure SMA, which is spinal muscular atrophy, which is what the founder and owner of Sick Media, Sammy Cavallaro, was diagnosed with at 9 months old. Told he was going to probably pass by the age of 2. Today he's 25 years old. He owns 27 or 28 podcasts throughout North America. So we want to make this kind of a tradition of sorts. And we want to make it a tradition of sorts, and this is what we're going to do. So every year, that's going to be the first one, and it's going to get bigger and bigger every year. We're going to go on for 14 hours consecutively, and we're going to ask for everyone watching us tomorrow, whoever can afford it, whoever can donate a few dollars to Cure SMA. We're going to put up the YouTube link. We're going to put up the link of Cure SMA actually on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and you can make a donation there. Any amount gets you a tax receipt, and you'll be emailed that tax receipt within an hour or so, maybe a little bit more, but you'll get pretty much an email almost immediately, and you get a tax receipt once again for any amount. So I'm going to be going on as usual between 10 and noon with my show en français. Eric Hoziel will host 2 hours between noon and 2. Shane Gaumont is going to go on between 2 and 3, also on français. Matt O'Hain will go on in English between 3 and 4. The Sick Podcast, The Eye Test with Jimmy Murphy and Pierre Maguire between 4 and 5:30. I'm going to be back on for the Habs pregame show between 5:30 and 7 p.m. Shane and Matt are going to be on a Habs watch and versus Bruins Habs watch party. So they'll be watching the game and giving their live reactions. They're going to go up until 10 p.m. And then at 10 p.m., I'm going to be back with the Habs versus Bruins post-game show for a couple of hours. So I'm going to do at least 5.5 hours of the 14 hours tomorrow. And then we're going to be off, actually, for the rest of the week. which is going to be kind of awesome. We have a bunch of sponsors who are actually, Eric, going to be bringing us some food tomorrow and some fruits and some desserts and some, anything you could, there's some beverages. And we're asking our collaborators if they can volunteer about 15 minutes of their time to join one or two shows or whatever. Eric, I don't know what your schedule is, but if at one point you can join one of the shows, I'll touch base with you via text message. If you can spare about 15 minutes tomorrow, tell us what time you're available. We'd love to have you if you can do that.
I'll try and make a surprise appearance. I'm preparing to watch the Canadiens and Lane Hutson in Boston.
Okay. That's hold on a second. Are you going to Boston or are you in Boston?
No, I'm not going to be in Boston. No, I got to watch it and I got to write about it. But
okay. I guess can you watch the game with us or?
I'm up north.
Oh, you're up north. You live the way I dream, man. You live the way I dream. Okay. In ending, before we let you go, just a couple of stats I want to bring up, and just whatever comes to your mind, like just say any word that comes to your mind. Okay. We'll bring up a couple of stats regarding Hutson, Slafkovsky. So just tell us the first word that comes to the top of your mind. Go ahead. Can we bring them up? Here we go. Most multi-assist games for the Canadiens this season. Hutson 7, Suzuki 6, Slafkovsky 3, Dobson and Demidov have 2.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. We talked about Slav. We talked about Suzuki. Hutson is amazing.
Phenom. Next.
I don't even care about the numbers. It's just watching him play. It's remarkable what he's doing.
He's the best. I don't think I've ever marveled at any other Canadiens player that I've covered more so than Lane Hutson, who's just defined the laws of physics. 5'9", 162 pounds, can skate like 24 hours a day type of thing. The more he plays, the more effective he is. It's unbelievable.
Because he was so good last year, it was hard to imagine him getting that much better within such a short period of time. He's that much better. Like, you have to give him full credit. His dedication is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But his will to be the difference every single shift will carry him beyond superstardom in this league. He's going to go down as, I don't want to overhype him. I don't want to be accused of overhyping him either.
Well, you're not. There's no overhype
just
anymore.
Watch the guy play. He's a remarkable player. He's a team guy. He's a role model in terms of the way he operates and what he did off the ice and what he's accepted, to help the Canadiens build the team that they want to have and the team that he wants to win with. He's full value and beyond, and just he's a hell of a kid. He's a great kid.
He became the 11th fastest defenseman in NHL history to reach 100 points and the fastest in Montreal Canadiens history. So when you talk about the Canadiens and you talk about the big three, and you talk about Robinson, Savard, Lapointe, and all the greats, and Doug Harvey, and all the greats who played for the Canadiens, there you have it. I had to sneeze. In Montreal Canadiens history, thank you very much. He became the fastest to do it in Montreal Canadiens history. And by the way, he reached 100 points in less games than Quinn Hughes did. I mean, isn't that something that's just absolutely amazing? And the fewest games for a defenseman younger than 22 to reach 100 career point mark in NHL history. Brian Leetch did 102 games, Larry Murphy 105, Phil Housley 106, Al McInnes in 115, Denis Pavin in 116, and Lane Hutson in 119. 4 games faster than Ray Bourque did it. Isn't that something? It's amazing.
What's really, really amazing about it is the teams that he's played for to do it. Like, you talk about Robinson and the big three, and like those guys played on arguably the greatest team ever. Like he's playing on a rebuilding Montreal Canadiens team that's, early phases and into middle phases. They're still a bit of a ways off from being the team they're going to become. It's astounding what he's done.
Eric, it really is. I said we were going to do this in less than an hour. Guess what? We did it in 59 minutes. Isn't that something? My God. Eric, I hope to talk to you again tomorrow. If I don't, happy holidays to you and yours.
You too.
And, you and I will be in touch, okay?
You too. We'll make it happen.
Great work. Thank you so much. There you have it. Eric Engels of Sportsnet, sportsnet.ca. Special thanks to all of our sponsors, and thanks to all of you for watching and listening. And I hope you liked the podcast tonight. If you did, leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. If you're not following us on YouTube, I would hope that you will do so in the very, very near future. And once you do so, tell your friends and family to follow us as well. We appreciate the love and support. For Shane Gamo and Master Control, thanks for watching, everyone. The Sick Podcast. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. en français. We're going all the way up until midnight tomorrow night. Be with us. All of this, our marathon telethon for a great cause, Cure SMA. Have a great night.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Tibi, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.